Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a wonderful guest today. Tom Bergeron is here. Hi, Tom.
Hello there, Meredith. How are you?
Oh my gosh. I am so surprised, honored. I don't know, pick an adjective that you're here because I Googled interviews with you. You don't do this a lot.
I don't do it a lot. I have to say though that the advantage of being able to do it in my own house, is probably one of the reasons why you're seeing a few more than in the past. It's just
Right. Well, I
it's so
thought,
it's so apart from the fact that what you folks watching right now won't know, it took about 5 minutes for me to figure out how to get the audio to work. Other than that,
other than
it's
that,
easy peasy.
well, I thought for a minute, like the fear that set in when I realized, like, he doesn't do a lot of these. Is this a trick? Is this a lesson that he's going to teach me?
Yeah, right. Yeah, Zen in the art of interviewing, right?
What is the life lesson here? But no, so thank you so much for your time. I told my
Sure.
mother, she's the biggest Dancing with the Stars fan in the world, and she has harassed me every day for the last 2 weeks. Is today the interview? Is today the interview? How are you doing? And so she knew it was today, and we've had a countdown. So hi,
Oh,
Mom.
nice. Hello, Mom. How are you?
Hello, Mom. Oh my goodness. So let's talk first. I want to just do different than probably most interviewers do. I want to talk about your fitness because you love to work out. It's an
I
important part
do.
of who you are. So
I
how
do.
how long has it been a lifelong thing? Is it new? Like, what do you like to do? Like, let's talk about
No,
that.
it hasn't really been a lot. I mean, to some degree, yes. I mean, even in my teen years, in my hometown, I'd go for a jog around the town lake and things like that. But I'll tell you when it really kicked in was when I got my first job in Boston television after working in New Hampshire radio and TV for a few years, and got my first substantial paycheck. I I celebrated by drinking a lot of Bass Ale that year, and I'm a little over 5'9". I'm about 5'9.5". I got up to 190 pounds, which is too much for too little height. and and I think it was a few years later when I was about to turn 40, and I was working on a morning show on FX called Breakfast Time when FX first launched back in '94. And I made a New Year's resolution when I got on the scale, and it was like 191, that I'll be 160 by my birthday in May. And I got there. I got to 158, running like a madman, working out. And then I don't run as much anymore, but it developed a real love for working out. So I was thrilled when I found out the gyms were opening back up here
I
in
know.
California on limited capacity, but I can get back in
I
Monday.
know, I know. We're outside of Boston, 20
Oh,
miles.
okay.
But I'm from Georgia, so we've been up here 2 years, and we're actually heading back down south.
Uh-huh.
So I just can't handle the winters. I'm a baby.
Well, now I didn't get back east after November, late October, early November. I was there briefly, but it was a relatively mild winter, wasn't it? I only got a,
That's what everyone says, but
I
I'm
yeah,
dying,
I
dying.
see. When I'm in California, I judge the severity of the winter by how many bills for plowing I get for our property back east. I said, we only got two, so
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. So, how important is meditation to you? So, I've been doing
very.
this podcast for 4 years, and at the
Mm.
end of the each episode, I'll ask a guest what is something that makes a big difference in your 24 hours. And I swear, 80% of people say meditation.
Yeah, well, it's been a really important part of my life going back, geez, even before I got married. So probably 40 years.
So, since
Uh,
birth,
so yeah, I was a prenatal meditator. I had
right?
my late mother said she could. I didn't kick. I vibrated with a mantra in her stomach. Is I think how it went. No, I started meditating. I think in probably my early 20s, and yeah, it's a very important part of my life. I do it at least once every day.
For how long? Like, what is?
About 20 minutes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do the TM form of meditation. And, to me, TM teachers might take issue with this, but I think meditation is meditation. I think it's,
Mm.
it's like Coke and Pepsi. I mean, you're building
Well,
a
the Coke people might take issue
yeah,
with that.
that's right. I'm sure they will. But you're building a mental muscle, really. And for me, I use a Sanskrit mantra that was given to me years ago. You can use your breath, a word that means something to you, a phrase, a spot on the wall. It's just about being present. So back when I was doing footwork with the Famous, after the dress rehearsal, I'd go into my dressing room, and if I had enough time, if we weren't running late, I'd meditate for about 15, 20 minutes before the show went live to the East Coast at 5 o'clock Pacific time.
Wow. How do you feel about live TV? Because I know you did so many. See, I like live stuff too.
Yeah,
I feel like I don't know why.
Can I tell you something, Meredith?
Tell me why.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things I enjoyed about reading an email from you prepping for this interview was that you don't prepare questions, really.
Right.
Nor do I ever ask an interviewer for questions. I always like to have a conversation, for it to be real and in the moment. So live television is that in spades. I mean, it really is. There's no second take. So you have to be alive to the possibilities that anything can happen.
Right.
And for me, that's exciting. That's like a kid in a candy store at that point.
So is it like when you're doing Dancing with the Stars, do you have
I'm not doing it anymore.
I mean, when you were doing, I know that.
Right.
But when you were doing it, for example, when you were doing it, was there a script?
Oh,
I mean,
Meredith froze.
Oh, I froze, but I
froze
can see you.
And it was a great point too. It was like, when you
am I still gone?
You're back. You're back.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's when good. You take a screenshot. You kept going, so
I
that
thought,
was weird.
I just thought that was an incredibly dramatic pause for a second.
Now I'm just playing. But what is scripted? Is anything scripted when you're doing live TV? Because I know you do a lot of ad lib, but how much?
A lot of ad lib. The only thing that was really scripted when I did the show with Erin was going to a commercial, because the director might have particular shots that he wants to get of people backstage as we would promote upcoming storylines and dances, and then coming back from the spot of the commercial if there were specific things. But outside of that, all of the reaction to the dancers, to the judges' comments, to whatever was happening amongst the participants, that was all ad-libbed. And it was something that became important to me after the first season of the show, which was more scripted. And it just wasn't comfortable for me. And so I went to the producers at the beginning of the second season and said, I really would like to not be on that teleprompter so much. And luckily they trusted me enough to give me enough rope to potentially hang myself on live TV, but it all worked out. It all worked out.
I feel that way if I do a speaking engagement and they want the slides ahead of time, or, you feel very constrained because what if the audience is really bored with what you're saying? And then I don't know. Not that I would want to necessarily do live television. That's a whole nother ball game. I think
it's hard. I'll tell you, it's harder for me to do tape stuff than
really?
the live stuff. Yeah. It really is.
Is it because do you think it's tied to your meditation and your focus on presence? I mean, if you're taping, maybe you're not as present, or?
Yeah, I think even like when I did the video show, and to his credit, Vin DeBona, who's the creator and executive producer, did everything he could to make it as live as possible for me. So we would do an hour show in about an hour 20. And the reason it took that long was because we had to stop down to explain voting to the studio audience and then go back and start it up again. Bob Saget, who's a buddy of mine, we talked about our respective ways of hosting the show. Now, when Bob did it, it was a half-hour show. And he told me sometimes it would take maybe up to 3 hours to do that. Because he was so particular, because he's a comic, he's
right.
I
grew up with Bob's. Well, I mean, not grew up, but I watched the Bob. Yeah.
Right. So, Bob, as a comedian, wanted to score alongside the videos a lot of the time. My perspective as a broadcaster was that the videos and I were almost a comedy team, and I was the straight man. And I'd get in an ad lib every so often or play with the audience, but we were there to watch the videos, and I
Right.
was there to kind of shepherd you through them.
Right. So I might have admittedly been trying to trick you when I said when you do Dancing with the Stars, because I
Uh-huh.
saw your Instagram with Erin.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and you
We
broke
it
the
was
internet yesterday. So what's that? What are y'all doing? What's
it was
up?
it was so funny because we hadn't seen each other. We've certainly been in touch with each other via texts and phone calls and such,
Right.
but we hadn't been in hugging range pre-COVID. So it was great. It was great to see her, and we're good buddies, as I think those pictures attested to.
Yeah.
But to those who were speculating that there was any hint that there was a return or anything of that nature, no.
Okay. You heard it here
Yeah,
second.
no. It's just a couple of buddies having
Everyone.
lunch. That's all.
Oh, that's funny. So you got your start in radio
Yeah.
broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
How hard was it to transition from radio to television? Did you notice? I mean, is it a hard transition or
The hardest
different?
yeah, it's a good question, but the hardest transition as I look back over the 900 years of my career was the transition from not being a broadcaster to being a broadcaster. By that, I mean, when I started in radio in my hometown, I was 17. I,
Wow.
I was lucky enough to get hired when I didn't know my broadcasting ass from my elbow, and I learned as I earned, pretty much, after I graduated high school. And what the hardest thing for me to learn in those early years was just to be myself, was not to have
Yeah.
all the artifice of a broadcaster, all of that
Oh,
kind of.
that's wow.
We'll be
That's
right back after.
intense.
Yeah, not to have that sort of artificial human quality that some people
Yeah.
on
Well,
TV and
that's got to be
radio.
hard to keep up. I mean, even if it is your job, it's got to be hard to keep up that amazing voice.
No, that well, if I did it like that, but no, just normal talking is fine. That I'll tell you though, I am aware, and especially on a live show like the 2-hour show we used to do on Mondays, um, it's still performance energy. Like I work out at the gym with a personal trainer, and uh, and she'd tell me sometimes she did 8 or 9 sessions in a day. I said, "You must be exhausted. That's a lot of
Gosh.
performance energy." And she said, "Oh, I didn't think of it like that." I said, "But it's true. Each of your clients is different. You have to modulate how you're interact. I mean, it's true of anybody in any, whether you're parenting, whatever work you're doing.
Yeah.
We're all, to some extent, we're all performing. It's a bit of an exaggerated, buffed and polished version of our real selves, you might say. So
Right.
that can be exhausting. And for me, doing that 2-hour live show, um, people on the staff and the press that would cover the show knew that I would never be around for the press line after. By the time the copyright hit the air, I was in my jeans and heading out to the bar over at the Grove.
Right.
Yeah, just to decompress a little bit. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. I've never heard the term performance energy, but you're so right. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting when you think about it that way. I mean, I do a lot of CrossFit
Mm-hmm.
and we're friends with some of the CrossFit coaches. And when they talk about, coaching more than 3 or 4 classes,
Yep.
I'm like, that's like 4 hours. Is that a big deal? But it's so like, I really paid attention to the energy they put out, like
Yeah.
cheering us, middle-aged people on, jumping on boxes. And I'm like, gosh,
Right.
they have to get tired of that. But even with my kids, like we've been home remote schooling and come 8 o'clock, I'm like, no more questions.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But
Performance energy is done. Yeah.
it's that same thing. I mean, it's just the venue I did it was a more obvious venue because I was on television, but we all do it to some degree or
Yeah.
another. Yeah.
So you've had the shows you've done, there's been a lot, it's longevity. I mean, you
Yeah.
did Hollywood Squares for a while, like 15
That was
years.
6 years of Hollywood Squares,
Oh,
15
6 years
years. Yeah.
of the fun of the videos.
Videos was 15, and videos really, it was just it was my choice to wrap up my tenure and pass the pinata stick off to Alfonso uh, back when the show hit its 25th anniversary, and I
Right.
was hitting my 15th season. So I liked that symmetry. I thought that was a good time to pass it on. And Alfonso had just recently won the dancing competition, so
Right.
his profile had popped within the network. So I was championing his cause when I decided to leave.
Well, my kids, obviously, I liked America's Funniest Home Videos. My kids like it. And so I brought my son, he's 13, down. And I said, look who I'm talking to in a little bit. And he was like, he was the prior guy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The prior guy, but he
The
like
prior
thought
guy.
for a minute and he was like, I know him from somewhere.
Somewhere. Well, it's been now, what, 5 years? I think Alfonso's in year number 6 of his run.
Right. So
Yeah.
that would have put James, I don't do math.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, you
7?
can
Yeah.
every so often when a young person was kind of, you were on TV? Yeah, but imagine me with brown hair. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you
So
can watch
James,
it.
my son, did a good job then.
He did a good job. Yeah, he went right past the hair color difference.
Well, his dad used to have brown hair too, so
There you
it's
go.
no
There you
longer the
go.
case.
Okay. Yeah.
But back to what I was trying, my point was you've stayed places a while. I mean, is that kind of who you are? You like to kind of settle in and get familiar and love what you're doing, or is it just
No.
happenstance? Yeah.
It's more happenstance, actually. The video show and the dancing show were aberrations in how long I was at each, 15 years at each. Back when I always thought of myself as having 3-year turnovers. A radio station in New Hampshire, 3 years. But then I put a lot of that quickly because I did a talk show in Boston for 6 years.
Yeah.
But by 3 years, I was getting itchy. So for me to last 15 years on any format was really a tribute to the people and the format.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want to talk about? I like to do that sometimes because then everyone goes like this. What's going on in your life? What are you doing? Let's see. What are we? Friday. What are you doing this weekend?
Talk about nuclear physics. Why don't we talk about that?
Nuclear physics.
Yeah,
what's your weekend like? What do you do? What do you do for fun?
Well, now that the gyms are open again, my weekday hiking will shift to weekends. But what I'm doing some writing. I've been doing a lot of fundraising for entertainment organizations. There's a company, Cameo, you might be familiar with, where people can basically pay celebrities to wish them or a family member a happy birthday, congratulations on a job promotion, yada, yada, yada. And they had asked me to be part of it for a couple of years prior to COVID. And it wasn't anything that I was particularly interested in doing. But then when COVID happened, I thought, with all production shut down, it might be a nice way to pass some money on to SAG-AFTRA members who are out of work. I have been exceedingly fortunate in my career that I don't have to worry about financial issues. So to be able to have a fun vehicle to raise money to pass along. So I did in 2020, I did, I think, over 800 of these little cameo videos and managed to pass on about $60,000 to SAG-AFTRA's COVID-19 fund. And now this year I'm doing them for the Motion Picture Television Fund because they gave me this great water bottle.
I want a water bottle. Give me a water bottle.
It's a really good one. But the Motion Picture Television Fund has a campus not far from where I am. And I've been involved with them for years, and it just seemed like a great way to kind of shift the focus for those cameos to them this year.
Awesome. Do you have any moments in your career that replay in your head, like, oh my gosh? Because I have an example of one. I was a baby lawyer, and I was in my first court case. It was a divorce trial. And it was just before a judge, the lawyers, the parties. But when I asked my question, I said, please state your name for the record. And there was no record because there was no court reporter.
Well, but you were a baby. You were a baby.
I was a baby.
You're asking in a little baby voice. It was probably
a little baby voice.
Would you state your name for the record?
That's what I felt like. But it was weird because I was in this small town and I was in I had to play much older than I was because, for a lot of reasons. But sometimes I will lay in bed at night and that will come into my head. And I'm like, for whatever reason, that haunts me. And it's the dumbest thing. Is there anything like that in your life?
Yeah. Look, when we were all starting out, we were learning. And I mean, I interviewed Mo and Larry of the Three Stooges
Oh my
when I was
gosh.
16 years old
I love the Three
from
Stooges.
my childhood home in Massachusetts, in Haverhill, and had a little cassette tape recorder, and my folks were out, and I just happened to call information in California and track down Larry, and then Larry gave me Mo's number. I was
Stop.
I was a nervous wreck. I mean, we turned some of those interviews into a special with Howard Stern's Sirius XM channel, so you can hear 16-year-old Tom trying to
No
sound
way.
40. But yeah, I was desperate to sound mature and worthy of them taking time to talk to me. But yeah, there's some of the early stuff that I remember. When I was in high school, I was a senior. I got a part-time job at the local radio station to do a Saturday night rock music show.
Yeah.
I was as nervous as I've ever been in my life. I have a sense memory of my heart trying to push itself through my rib cage, and what it felt like to open that microphone for the first time and try to tell a joke, which I'm sure was horrible. But on Monday, I was walking in the hallway at the high school, and this group of guys went, "Hey, Bergeron, we heard you on the radio Saturday." I just, "Oh, you sucked." Yeah. So that's how my career started, Meredith.
Yes. And that's an
You sucked.
excellent accent
Yeah.
too. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. You sucked. Wow. Yeah. I don't know why. I think it has to do with imposter syndrome. And I know everyone has that to a degree, but I think I go back to, and we've been selling our house and I've been dealing in contracts. And the whole time I was a lawyer, I was like, this is not my real life. I can't do this. I'm
Right.
just playing a lawyer. And so I got out of law and then I was thrust back into it this week doing contracts and stuff. And so I think like that's why I'm having these flashbacks. But
Is it like riding a bicycle? Do you find that you have all the skill sets
yeah,
still there
the
latent?
same like vomit comes up,
Oh,
the
good.
same
Oh, all
dread,
right.
you know, the same hatred for other lawyer. Yeah, it's all there. It's
Oh,
fresh,
wonderful.
fresh,
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said about celebrity because you said, you know,
Mhm.
Cameo is doing
Oh,
these
you
things
froze again. Now, I don't know if I froze
Oh,
on your side.
you're still going.
I'm
How
still
about, am I
going.
back?
All right.
You're still going.
All right, good.
But you had put the word celebrity in quotes when
Yeah.
referencing yourself. And it's interesting because I talked to Dustin Milligan, who's on that show, Schitt's Creek. And
Oh,
he
yeah, of course.
also, we had a whole discussion about celebrity
Yeah.
and what it means. And so what did you mean by your air quotes?
Well, it just seems silly. The whole celebrity thing seems silly. You know, it's one thing to, and this is just my own personal thing, but it's one thing to enjoy the craft or artistry or skill that somebody brings to a profession, but to somehow put them on pedestals or obsess over what they ate or who they're dating or any of that nonsense. um I just find the whole thing somewhat distasteful, I think. And I'll tell you, and it's underscored by the fact that as my career continued and I got to become friends with people whom I had admired from afar, like the late Carl Reiner was a friend of mine for over 20 years. William Shatner's a buddy who, I grew up watching on Star Trek and things like that. And what happens is they they're people. They're just regular folk who do something that happens to be more recognizable than other jobs. But we all kind of deal with the same stuff, you
Yeah.
know. So I
Everybody
guess,
poops.
yeah, we, all that stuff. So yeah, I guess it's just a whole thing that I find, like when people talk about my fans or,
Yeah.
it's just a terminology thing that makes me wince a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, my mom will now cringe that I said poop to Tom Bergeron. So that'll go in the thing that keeps me awake now.
Well, at least you didn't say
poop.
shit, right? You could have said shit.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So tell Mom, I said
Sorry,
poop,
Mom.
but he said shit.
He said shit. She'll be like, oh, Meredith.
Yeah.
How is social media? I mean, social media 10 years ago when I started blogging, there was no social media, not really. So in 10 years, just the little bit I've seen, it's crazy. So
Yeah.
what is your impression? Like the global back up. You've been in this for a while. What do you think about social media?
I think it has slowed down the evolution of the species
Yeah.
markedly.
Hmm.
I think it gives easy access to our basest instincts a lot of the time. Um, and that's unfortunate. You see, especially, I'm so grateful that I wasn't growing up in this age of
Right.
social media. It's so easy to be uh, bullied and feel isolated and ascribe importance to nonsense. Um, so yeah, I think look, there are obvious benefits to it, but we've also seen over the past few years how people in power can use it as a weapon, and people can be led astray by it quite easily. So, I think we have a lot of growing up to do in terms of our use of social media.
Yeah, and you're right about that. I've got a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old. My
Yeah,
boy's 13, and it's just, I mean, we've kept them off. They have no access to Facebook or Instagram or
yeah.
um and I figure the longest every year for Christmas that's on their list. This year I would like Instagram, and I say Santa doesn't know how to deliver that. That's a very that's a
Wait, how,
specific
how
request.
how old are they?
13 and 12.
And they're still buying the Santa thing, huh? Okay, whatever.
They're very
What?
smart.
Yeah, all right.
No, they
Yeah.
don't buy it. They don't buy it at all. I say Instagram comes with their car
Oh,
because
all
they're
right,
not
fair enough.
getting a car either.
Yeah, there you go. I
They're
hope
going to
they're not
share.
watching this.
No, they
They
would
realize
never.
they're being scammed.
I know, total scam, total scam. So, what is important to you now and in your 40s?
Yeah, thank you for
In your
that.
40s
Yeah,
that was,
my
or like
40s.
what is not, let's start with that. What's not important to you now that might have been important to you 20 years ago?
It's interesting. It's the first time over the past few years that I don't have that fire in my belly to be on television anymore. Which is not to say that I won't be. It's just that it's not a driving force anymore, like it
Mm.
used to be. I think part of that was, um, you know, getting to a point in my life where I kind of looked at what my wife and I had been able to build to this point and go, oh, wait a minute, we could stop now if we if we wanted to. Um, that's why I started with the COVID situation and the dancing show going in a different direction. I had more time, and so I started doing some writing. I've been really enjoying that, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and just enjoying life in the midst of this bizarre time we're in. I've been very fortunate to live in an area where I can go out and go hiking and uh, you know uh, be with family more. And I did make a couple of trips back east briefly because we have family back there as well and property back there. But I guess what's important to me now is using the time well, not wasting it. Again, by being present, being what is fulfilling, what is challenging, what is exciting, and looking at it through that prism.
What are you writing?
It's a novel called Drive Time. It's a coming of age story, largely comedic, set in the early 70s. There's certainly autobiographical influences, but it's not autobiographical. It features a 18-year-old newbie to radio in a fictitious town in New Hampshire, and his desperate attempts to get laid.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's like
that's pretty. That's
yeah.
pretty much it in a nutshell.
I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, right? That's what
Hmm.
life's about. Oh,
Yep.
that's great. Do you have a publisher?
No, I don't even. I don't have a deadline. I don't have an
Okay,
agent.
when
I don't.
you're ready,
Yeah.
I want to connect you to my publisher
Oh,
because
okay.
then you can have your great publisher and I can be a hero. See how
All
this works?
right. Yeah. Well, yes. Okay. Well, this is
Yeah,
proving to be a very fruitful
that's
conversation.
right.
But what I like is that because a friend of mine, Lori Gelman, who was when she was Lori Hibbard, was we co-hosted the Breakfast Time show, and she's written now 3 books. Class Mom is the first one. You've Been Volunteered is the second one. I think the third one comes out soon. And Yoga Pants Nation, I think, is the third one. And she's such a good writer. She's really, really funny, and we're good buddies. So she's seen some of what I've written. I trusted her with
Nice.
yeah. So she's been cheering me on.
So I've written nonfiction, and my whole life I thought I'm going to write fiction. I want to write fiction. I want to grow old with my big glasses and my silk robe and write fiction. Like that's my dream.
Yeah.
And so I started during the pandemic, I started working on my fiction book, and I killed off my protagonist. And then I was in the shower and I started weeping that I killed off my protagonist. And I thought, I'm not ready for this. And I just put it away. I was like, if I'm going to act like this, it was too much. It was weird.
Now, when you killed off your protagonist, were there other options available to you that would not have put a lie to the rest of the story, or was it a necessary death?
I think it's a necessary death. I still stand by it because I'm still, I put that aside because I'm working on my third nonfiction book, but I think it has to happen. And I think the thing that scares me about fiction is it runs away. You know, you sit down to write and then you emerge and the whole story's run away. You sat down to write something.
That's interesting you're saying that, because I'm having the exact opposite experience.
Really?
My experience is somewhat similar to what I've heard actual published. Now, I have one book out from years ago called "I'm Hosting as Fast as I Can," or hosting as fast. You have to check the title. It's been 11 years, but that was anecdotal stuff, and it really was a book about meditation, and I just used anecdotes to kind of sort of, it was a covert book about meditation. But what I'm finding in writing fiction in this experience is, because I kind of know where it's going in a general sense, I'm finding surprises along the way. It's almost like there was a moment the other day when I was writing where suddenly a couple of characters occurred to me that I hadn't planned on having there, and now I see them as integral to getting us to where we need to go. So they're in the way that doing a live television show gave me the opportunity to trust that there are opportunities here that I'm not going to know what those opportunities are going in. They're going to happen in the moment. And that's kind of what's happening. I said to Erin, because Erin was asking me very much the same thing when we had lunch yesterday. And I said, Erin, it's like I'm hosting a story. And suddenly I get an idea, like I would get an ad lib idea on the set, and I go in that direction, and that feeds to something else. But having a general, it's almost as if you're taking a vacation. You know that you want to drive to Niagara Falls or whatever. So you know that's my destination. You just don't know how many side streets you might take to get there, or what sights you might see that might make the trip even richer. So that's kind of a long way of saying I'm having the exact opposite experience of yours, Meredith.
Well, I don't know if it's the exact opposite because I know where I'm going, right? When I say it runs away. So I know the plot. I know I know where I'm going, right? I knew the protagonist was always dying. I knew that.
Okay. All right.
But how it got there is what broke my heart. And that was new.
Oh. Okay, but that's great. That's that sense of discovery.
But it scares me. It's so weird. I will write a memoir about my life and tell everyone about my underwear, but to make up a story feels more vulnerable, and I'm having to like deal with that, and it's very weird.
That is okay. All right.
I don't know.
I want to pursue this. This is going to be like your therapy session, Meredith.
Okay, good. They always turn into that anyway. These podcasts.
So your protagonist you knew was going to perish by story's end.
Yeah.
How did the nature of your protagonist's demise change? I mean, did it become more tragic, more painful, less sudden? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm also realizing that I'm a little bit darker. Like a little bit Gillian Flynn versus Judy Blume. You know what I mean? Like I kind of have, Gone Girl, Sharp Objects kind of edge. So I'll be writing something and then it'll just take a dark turn. And then I end up in a cave somewhere and I emerge and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. I just wrote that. And so I think part of it's that it's really, I've always written, but I haven't really written stories.
Mm-hmm.
I've written, articles. And so I think it's understanding, and really this is about becoming who we are.
Yeah.
Life is, right? Showing up who we are. And so I think realizing that, oh, you're just kind of dark and twisty, like they used to say on Grey's Anatomy, you're just kind of dark and twisty. It's fine. Like be there, and your mom will be okay. We talked about mom a lot, but I think about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I think it's amazing that you're right. You said you hit 40,000 words recently, right?
20,000, yeah.
20,000.
So, and because I don't have a deadline, I can kind of do it as the whim hits, but I try to be semi-disciplined. I've put aside a couple hours a day where I do bring it up and just start tapping the keyboards and see what happens. But I plan to, Lori told me that she's got a deadline for her 4th class mom novel, September. I said, all right, good. I'm going to, my Taurian need for a schedule has kicked in. So I'm treating your deadline as my deadline. So I'm aiming for September as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. So when you're done with it, you'll contact me and I'll get you a publisher. It's that easy.
No, first you'll read it and then you'll go, oh my God, why did I ever suggest that he contact my publisher?
I mean, you already have more of a clue what you're writing about than I'm over here doing. So it sounds great to me.
Okay.
And it's got someone trying to get laid. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we have got to wrap.
And by the way, I know it has a happy ending. So
there it is. I was waiting for the pun of the episode. That was good. Okay, so we got to wrap. I have to honor your time. So.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that went fast.
I know. Time flies when you're having fun.
Indeed.
So this podcast, the same 24 hours, meaning we all have the same 24 hours in our day, but it's what we do in those hours that leads to our greatest health, happiness, and success. Mm-hmm. So aside from meditation, what is something that you do in your 24 hours that you can kind of point to and say, this makes my 24 hours great?
Yeah, well, a standard day, a typical day of late, and now with the gym open, I can include this in my typical day happily. But yeah, I have the New York Times delivered, so I like that tactile feeling of a real newspaper. So I stagger down the driveway, pick that up in the morning over my first cup of coffee, and then I'll meditate after, I've kind of woken my brain up a little bit. I'll go outside if it's nice and meditate for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. Then write for a little bit, or, go to the gym first for a training session, then come back and do some writing. Lunch with friends, as you saw in my Instagram post yesterday. I've got a couple other friends from the show that I haven't seen in a while. I'll be lunching with soon. And
now everyone will really be talking.
Yeah, well, don't get your hopes up. Yeah, it's only lunch. Let me tell you. Yeah, and then Lois and I have found lovely shows to binge on at night. Streaming services could not have happened at a better. If you're going to have a pandemic.
Seriously,
have streaming services, because it's been a godsend. It really has.
Yeah. Have you made it through Breaking Bad?
No, I stopped. It's interesting. I years ago I watched like the first season, and for whatever reason, because it wasn't all available at once, maybe I just kind of it was like
you just forgot. It just like fell off. Yeah.
In the movie Up, when the dog goes squirrel, it was like that. I just found something else that got my attention. But we've been streaming a lot of Canadian shows, actually, that we've fought, like Murdoch Mysteries and Corner Gas, which is a wonderful sitcom set in Saskatchewan, or Kim's Convenience is a sitcom set in modern day Toronto. So we just kind of went into my Canadian heritage and started binging all those shows.
That's awesome. Yeah. With the Breaking Bad, so my husband and I started watching it years ago, and he just took off and kept going and left me in the dust. And I'm just not I can't catch up. And so I said, why don't we start that again?
Yeah.
And so we started it. And episode 4, I got up to do some laundry, and I come back and he's already an episode ahead of me. And I was like, are you seriously doing this to me again? Like, are you doing this to me again? Wow. But what Breaking Bad showed me, it's about this teacher going bad and
Walter White.
Walter White. Doing meth cooking or whatever. But we were so bored during this pandemic. It starts to make you think like, we could make a meth lab, couldn't we? Like, that would be something fun we could do this weekend, just like.
See, now this is interesting. You won't let your kids have Instagram,
but we'll run a meth lab out of our basement.
Meth lab with your husband.
Right. All right. It makes total sense.
It's a value judgment. What can you say, right?
I'm keeping them safe, but for my own life, whatever.
That's right. Whatever. Raise a little cash on the side. That's
right. All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was fun.
A pleasure, Meredith. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Hi, and welcome to the Same 24 Hours podcast. I'm Meredith Atwood, author of the book, The Year of No Nonsense. I'm a former attorney turned writer, speaker, and Ironman triathlete. Although right now, all I really like to do is lift weights. We all have the same 24 hours, but it's what we do in those hours that leads to our greatest health, happiness, and success. It's my goal to crack the code on a life of less nonsense so we can all make the most of our 24 hours. So let's get started.